The woman, on the other hand, who was equally qualified, but said, "Look, I'm not quite sure if I really fit the bill. Besides, things are going quite well for me right now, so I'm not really sure if I want to rock the boat." So inherent in that statement is this idea that, let me hold on to what is certain rather than venturing out into the unknown, venturing out into what feels uncertain. But if we do that, we are actually going against the very definition of courage, which is all about showing up even when you cannot control the outcome. And it's only when we make these courageous decisions to venture out into the unknown, to take these risks, however small or however big, do we really have a chance at growth and happiness and all of those things that we really value. So, and this is something that comes up in our work over and over again. This is an area that we do a lot of research around. And one thing that we know in all of the research that we've uncovered around this is that the gap is never one of capabilities. I'm sure each and every one of you who's joined us for this webinar, I'm sure you're supremely qualified, supremely competent. That is never at question. Where we do see a gap is in confidence or courage, and that is really what we have to solve for if we want to continue growing, if we want to continue rising in a way that we wish to. And even if you're not aspiring to become the CEO of a company, even if your aspiration is simply a better life, you want to be happier, you want to be more successful, you want to you want more adventures in life, you want a more exciting life, whatever it is that we want, it still takes courage to dream. I remember we were doing a session recently on boarding with a group of women, and it was so interesting because there were a handful of women who were create a vision because the thought was, well, there's this voice of doubt in my mind. There's this imposter syndrome inside me that's making me question if I can, first of all, if I can even create this vision. It's preventing me from even being able to imagine my life on this level. And even if I do imagine it, it's making me question if it's even possible for me. So to even allow ourselves to dream, we need courage. And interestingly, there was a study done by Bronnie Ware, and she writes about this in her book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She spent a lot of time with people who were on their deathbed, and she tried to uncover what are some of the things, if they could go back and change, what would they change? What were, in other words, some of the biggest regrets that they had? And the biggest regret that everyone shared was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. Again, this idea of courage, because it does take courage for every single one of us to create a life that on our own terms, to create a life that really gives us that sense of meaning and joy. So today, what we would love to talk to all of you about is, how do we build this courage muscle? How do we build this attitude of courage? And how do we do it mindfully? So in our programs, we typically go over 5 steps of building this mindful of using this mindful approach to building courage. Today, we'll talk to you about the very first step of this, which is awareness. And just to give you context in terms of why we're talking about this module is one of the core components, and indeed the very foundation of this program that we're launching at the end of this month, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, which what brings you here, which is called the Conscious Woman. It's a 6-month holistic leadership program for aspiring women leaders. And the reason why we decided to create this program is because we felt now more than ever before the world really needs a new kind of leader, a new kind, a new a way of thinking, a new way of looking at things. We need people who can lead with a clear set of values and principles, who genuinely care about the people around them, about the planet, and are willing to do all of the inner work that it takes to make that contribution on a much larger scale. So we wanted to design this for, of course, women from all backgrounds, whether it's corporate, entrepreneurs. Our doors are open for anyone. Although, because we want people to really feel that they have this like-minded community, we're saying, we're emphasizing this, that if you're sort of at the mid to senior level, then this would be a much better fit, because then you would be surrounded by women that share your aspirations as well as your challenges. And it's built around 5 pillars. The first, of course, is community. I mean, this is a core philosophy that we follow at Shenomics. And the idea is that you come into a sisterhood, you come into a collective that will support you every step of the way, that believes in you, and will be there to give you that support that you need to work towards whatever goals are important to you. The biggest piece of this, of course, is the curriculum that we will have as part of this journey, which has been modeled after our signature program that we've been running for the last 5 years inside organizations, our signature program, Women Leading from Within. And it has 5 core themes. The first, of course, leading with conscious clarity of oneself, of our values, of our vision. Leading with courage and compassion, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Leading with a really strong connection to oneself as well as everyone around us. Leading with a very strong set of capabilities that are really going to allow us to succeed in the kind of world that we live in. And finally, which is also very, very important, is how do we do all of this, but in a way that allows us to still continue to take care of, allows us to take care of ourselves and really prioritize our health and our well-being at the center of it all. Coaching, we also give you intimate support through coaching. We will be breaking you up into smaller groups, as well as there'll be peer-to-peer support as well. And of course, there's the optional individualized coaching. So you feel you have the accountability and the support to really work on all of those goals that are important to you. And throughout this journey, we'll be bringing to you an amazing set of mentors and experts from around the world that can speak to different aspects of living and leading consciously, from whether it's conscious consumption or applying a set of consciousness in the way we connect with nature around us. We'll be looking at all of that. And finally, because it's really important to us that we live and breathe everything we talk about, that only becomes possible if we apply all of that through some kind of action. So we're very big believers in learning by doing. And so a big piece of this will be a compassion project that everyone gets to design and execute for themselves, that allows them to fully step into the kind of woman, the kind of leader that you wish to be, and really pay it forward by creating a ripple effect that really uplifts the community around you. So those are the 5 core pillars. Here's just a sampling of some of the wonderful mentors and experts that we'll have as part of this journey. And of course, the 3 of us who will be there with you every step of the way. In addition to myself, Manisha Singh, who heads our coaching practice, and of course, Divya, who heads our client and community engagement. All right. So having said that, now let's come back to this framework that we're going to use today, a 5-step framework for building courage mindfully. Now, before we go move forward, here's an important distinction that I would like all of us to make, and that distinction is between courage and confidence. And before I share my thoughts on this, let me open it up to all of you and ask you, what do you believe is the difference between courage and confidence? I know those words sometimes are used interchangeably, which is why I would love to take a moment now and differentiate the two. So feel free to use the chat box and share your thoughts. What do you think is the difference between courage and confidence? All right, some good answers are coming in. Shweta is saying confidence comes from past achievements. Supriya is saying it's easier to fake confidence than courage. That's really interesting. Sarita is saying courage is the thought that you can go ahead. Confidence is the ability that you can do it. Shilpa saying courage might not be seen. Confidence is courage showed. Interesting. A really, really good set of responses. Absolutely. Asmita is saying courage comes from conviction. All right. I think all of you have a really good take on the differentiation here. And let me just break it down. So, as most of you are saying, absolutely, confidence is something that comes over time. The first time we attempt something, by definition, as if we're attempting something new, by definition, your confidence is going to be very low at that point. Now, why am I drawing attention to that? Because the mind, being as devious as it is, it often will say to us, you know what? You want to try that thing? Why don't you try it when you feel more confident? You want to have this conversation, this difficult conversation. Why don't let's postpone it. Maybe we'll come back to that conversation. Maybe we'll come back to that request. Maybe we'll come back to this thing that you want to try when you're feeling much better about yourself, when you're feeling a lot more confident. And that rationale almost never works. It's just the mind's way of tricking you into not taking an action that scares you. Because whenever we're trying something for the first time, confidence is not going to be there. So in that moment, what we need is not confidence. What we need is the courage to say, okay, I have not done this before. It feels uncomfortable. It feels difficult, but this is important to me. So I am going to go ahead and do it anyway. And of course, as I do it again and again and again, confidence will come and my confidence will grow over time. And this is an important distinction to make because, especially for all of us rising women, as we're rising in our careers, there are many, many, many times when you're going to be doing something for the first time. You're going to be taking on a challenge that you haven't before. You'll be doing something at a scale you haven't before. And in all of those moments, when you attempt those, even though you're going to feel like crap because confidence will be low, what we need in that moment is that gentle reminder that, well, that's okay. My confidence is low. That's all right. What I do have is this voice of courage that is allowing me and supporting me to move forward. So let's talk about not building confidence, but building courage. And on that note, I want to share with you one of my favorite stories, which I have at this point probably shared hundreds of times. And it's the story of this female tiger called Mohini. And she was brought into the Washington Zoo in the US. This is now several years ago. And at the time when she was brought into the zoo, there wasn't much space to keep her. So they basically put her inside a cage that was no bigger than, say, 10 feet by 10 feet. And Mohini basically spent her days going round and round, pacing back and forth inside this tiny little space. Now, as you can imagine, that almost feels cruel and unfair to such a magnificent creature. And sure enough, eventually a group of donors, a group of wealthy donors noticed that Mohini was kept inside this short this small constricted space, and so they made a large donation to the zoo, so the zoo could acquire a much bigger, open, vast, green space that they could move Mohini to, and that was more befitting of the magnificence that she had. But here's the interesting thing: even when she was moved into this much larger space, she continued to roam around in one tiny corner of this big open space and continued to spend her days going round and round in just that tiny little corner, and spend her days just pacing back and forth in that space alone until the day that she passed away. So that's the story of Mohini. And let me pause now for a second and ask you, what are you taking from the story? What do you think happened in this case? Why am I sharing this seemingly morbid story with all of you? Why did she only stay in one corner? What happened? Sarita saying mental blockage. Loss of confidence. Nidhi saying you should open up your mental constraints. She was trained that way. Comfort zone. Became a creature of habit. Absolutely, absolutely. So because of the conditioning, because of the earlier conditioning that she had, that she received to constrict herself inside this tiny space, she wasn't able to break out of that. Now, let me ask you, do you think there's a little bit of Mohini inside all of us? Yes. Yes, there is. And in some cases, we are aware that there is this Mohini inside us. In many cases, we're not aware. And unintentionally, we end up limiting ourselves, even though there's a world of possibilities in front of us and we could do whatever we want. But that voice inside of us puts us inside this invisible cage, inside this comfort zone, and we start to feel these limitations and we start to feel stuck. The good news is, unlike Mohini, we have this mind whose potential we can really harness to develop greater awareness that we are doing this and stop doing this. So how does Mohini really show up? Let me elaborate on this idea for a moment. Fear of failure, right? So going back to the story that I shared with you, many times if we're limiting ourselves, we don't even try. We stick to what we know. We stick to what is working well. When we don't venture out and take those risks, really what's the thing that's stopping us is failure. So we continue doing what we are doing. Fear of rejection, and therefore I don't ask for what I want, whether it's that promotion or that raise or that opportunity. Or in many cases I've heard people say, well, why they want to reach out to someone that could help them, a potential mentor or a potential sponsor. But again, the mind says, well, why would this person possibly be interested in you? And even if you reach out to them, more than likely this person will say no. And so you stopped yourself from reaching out because you don't want to get rejected. Then, of course, there's a fear of judgment, and that stops us from fully expressing ourselves. So I don't raise my hand and ask that question because I think it's a stupid question. I don't speak up and share my ideas because I'm wondering, well, but what if other people don't take to my ideas well, and what if they judge me harshly? So maybe it's better for me to just stay quiet. And oddly enough, something that keeps coming up as well is the fear of success. The mind is afraid of what success is really going to mean. What will that entail? From how will my life change if I am more successful? How might my relationships change if I'm more successful? And so that fear then tells us, let's just stay small, let's just stay just inside, just under the radar, so I don't have to make myself more visible. I don't have to face all of the things that I would have to face at this higher level of success. So let me again pause and ask you, which are the fears or behaviors that typically get in your way? What do you find keeps coming up for you or has come up for you in the past? Being judgmental, fear of judgment, fear of judgment, imposter syndrome, being opinionated, fear of making a fool out of myself, which is also the fear of judgment. Okay, so it looks like fear of judgment is really the one that fear of being rejected as well. Some of you are saying self-doubt, fear of being left because I'm a woman, fear of failure. Yeah, all of these, we all experience some variation of every single one of these. So let's talk about what we can do. Now, here's the thing, and this is really, really important. And it's taken me years to figure this out, years of trying to understand this through my own experience, and of course, really studying this as well. At the root of all our fears are two fundamental thoughts. The first thought is, I can't handle it. And the second thought is, if things don't go my way, if things don't go well, what that means is I'm not good enough. And therefore, as Brené Brown would say, I'm not worthy of love and belonging. So let me talk a little bit more about this idea. So I can handle it. Why? What am I really afraid of? More than anything, it is, how will I handle it if I lose my job? And the mind is saying, well, I don't know if I can handle that. I don't know if I can handle making a mistake, and what will happen if I do make a mistake. I don't know if I can handle failure. I don't know if I can handle being rejected. I can handle the responsibilities of success. So the real fear, in other words, is not of judgment, is not of failure, is not of rejection, is not of success. The real fear, the real doubt that I have is in my own ability to handle things if any one of these things happen. That is really what is at the root of it all. That is really the thing that we are doubting. And the second thing is, if things don't go well, if things don't go my way, well, that will mean what we typically make that mean is that I am not good enough. And that then gets us stuck into all kinds of limiting ways of thinking and behaving. I'll give you a few examples. The perfectionist says, well, I must be perfect at all times. I must do everything perfectly. I must do everything well, cross all the T's, dot all my I's. And if I do not, well, you know what? Then that means I'm not good enough. And that's too painful a feeling for me to experience. So I'm going to just, my mind gets stuck with this idea of perfectionism. The superwoman says, I must be able to do it all. I must be able to have a fabulous career. I must, have a great life at home. I should be a great mother, a great wife, a great daughter. I must, and look amazing while I'm doing all of it. And if I cannot, well, that means I'm not good enough, and it means I'm not as worthy of love and belonging. The natural genius says I should be able to do everything naturally. If I'm struggling, well, that means I'm not good enough. The soloist says I must be able to do everything all by myself. If I'm not able to do it all by myself, if I have to ask for help, well, that's a sign of weakness and it means I'm not good enough. The expert says I must be able to do everything, whatever I take on, I must reach a very high level of expertise. And if I cannot, well, that means I'm not good enough. And if I don't reach that level of expertise, then again, this sense of am I really worthy of love and belonging? So let me pause here once again and ask you which one of these shows up for you. Which one of these five shows up for you, if any? The superwoman, the expert, soloist, superwoman, soloist, perfectionist. A perfectionist is and most of these they're so tricky because we wear them as badges of honor because it almost feels like it's a strength. And there are of course there are a lot of benefits behind a lot of these ways of showing up as well. I'm not saying they're entirely negative, but they can be limiting as well, and we simply want to be aware of that. um, so here's my question to all of you. What if you were to tell yourself, no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at you, no matter what failure comes your way, no matter who rejects you, no matter what kind of judgment you get from anyone, you are still able to say, you know what, I can handle it. And you know what, no matter what happens, I firmly believe I am good enough and I'm worthy of love and belonging. What then would you have to fear? If these two things, if you could build the highest level of conviction around these two beliefs, I can handle it, and no matter what, I'm good enough and I'm worthy of love and belonging. What do you think happens to your fears? Which is why this is what we focus on in a mindful journey to building courage. Firstly, self-trust. If the biggest belief at the root of it all is that I can't handle it, well, I'm going to build trust in myself that, you know what, I trust my ability. I trust myself fully to be able to handle anything that comes my way. And I'm going to build that level of self acceptance and self love that no matter what happens in my life, I will always say, I am good enough and I am worthy of love and belonging. And I operate from that place. And if I operate from that place, do my fears automatically vanish? No, maybe they don't. Maybe they will always be there. But I will at the same time build my courage as well. And I will be able to take those steps towards anything and everything that I want and desire. So, awareness is really the first step of this journey. And let me talk a little bit more about why we begin with awareness. So, here's a question, and this is another question that I love to ask. How many thoughts do you think we have in any given day? Okay, some of you know the answer. Okay. 1 lakh, millions, innumerable, 60,000 to 80,000. So some of you know the answer. That's brilliant. So the number is anywhere, on average, it ends up being 65 to about 70,000 thoughts per day. Clearly, it's a big number, but that's not what is interesting. Why I draw your attention to this is because of this second fact, and that is that 90% of those thoughts generally tend to be the same every single day. How many of you would agree with this? Yeah. Um, and truth be told, some this part of this, of course, helps us because we don't want to be taking a lot of time making the smallest of decisions every single day. So yes, we're asking ourselves the routine questions every single day. What do I wear? What do I eat? A similar set of questions about our work, and all that is fine. But on a deeper level, we're also thinking about ourselves the same way every single day. We're reacting to the situations in our life the same way every single day. We are relating to the people in our life the same way every single day. And my question to you is, if all of us want to see some kind of positive change in our lives. We want to be happier, healthier, more successful, whatever it is that you want in your life. If the thoughts that we are thinking, if they're the same every single day, can we hope for any change? Is change possible? No. And that's why I bring your attention to this, because you are today, every single one of us. You are today where your thoughts have brought you, and you will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. So, if we want to make all of these changes in our lives, the work that we have to do, the most important work, and I cannot emphasize this enough, our biggest challenge, our biggest task that we have before us is to begin to bring a level of awareness to our thoughts and ask, what are the thoughts that are helping me? What are helping me get closer to where I want to get to? And what are the thoughts that are getting in my way? And therefore, I can replace with thoughts that will serve my highest good and that will um, help me get closer to where I want to get to. And the other reason why it's important for us to really bring this sense of awareness to our thoughts is also because of the nature of the mind, which is inherently negative. And none of us, of course, are at fault for this. This is just the nature of the mind. This is the evolutionary brain that evolved to always remember everything negative more than anything else, because it was essential to our survival to know that the last time I walked past that bush, there was a saber-toothed tiger that jumped out and tried to attack me, so maybe I shouldn't go there. But if someone smiled at me, if someone did something nice for me, well, that's great, but my survival doesn't depend on that. And so I don't need to remember that. And so the mind has become, and that's still the mind and the brain that we that's still the largest aspect of our brains today. There's this survival brain, this fight or flight brain, that holds on to all things negative. And this is the part of us that it fills us with self-doubt and says to us things like, sorry, I'm just going to take a moment to charge my laptop. Will say things like, especially when we're approaching the edge of our comfort zone and trying to take those steps outside, like Mohini, will say things like, really? You think you're ready for this? You think you're worthy of this challenge? You think you're good enough? But you may, are you really are you really ready for this? Because you need to be more perfect before you attempt this. You have to focus on becoming better than everyone else, and you're too old, too young, too fat, too thin, too lazy. add any adjectives. So call this this inner critic, call it voice of self-doubt, but we all have this radio that's constantly playing inside our heads, um, spewing all of these thoughts that don't really serve us. And to the extent where, for a lot of us, we don't even realize that this is coming from this this inner critic. We assume this is us, this is my voice, this is the voice inside me telling me what reality is, when in fact it's actually a part of us that is afraid and is saying all of these things because it doesn't want us to move forward. So here's a trick question I give to you. Let's say there is a bucket of dirty water in front of you. And the challenge I'm giving you is you have to clear this bucket of dirty water out completely. However, you cannot touch the bucket and you cannot touch the water. How then will you clear out this bucket of dirty water? Sheila is saying, suck out the water. Sarita saying, by thinking it's not dirty. Make a hole. Allow it to settle. Put it in the sun to dry. I'm seeing a lot of creative responses. This is brilliant. Filter it so it's not dirty anymore. Add cleaners to it. All right. I think get someone else to do it. There you go. So here's the answer, and I think some of you got close to the answer. And I'm trying to see. There you go, Nitya. Keep on pouring clear water, right? So you basically start by filling the bucket with clean water. So just pour clean water on top, one drop at a time. And very soon, drop by drop, the clean water would have completely filled the bucket and the dirty water would have left the bucket. Now, why do I share this with you? Because as is true in this analogy, the same is true of the mind. If there's one thing we know about the mind, if there's one thing we know from the neuroscience of the mind, is that it's extremely difficult to suppress negative thoughts. So if there is this voice of self-doubt that is spewing all of these negative, quote unquote, negative thoughts, how do we really, what can we do to, so these are, and especially when our mind is full of those thoughts, it's not about suppressing those thoughts. It's not about judging them. It's not about controlling the thoughts. All of that is very difficult to do. Our real power, our real freedom lies in choosing positive thoughts, one thought at a time, and continuing to do that over and over and over again with a lot of awareness, with a lot of intention. And over time, you will find that those positive and empowering thoughts would have taken over your mind, and there will be very little space for the kind of thoughts that don't serve you well. And that is really where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is the core philosophy that we follow at Shenomics. And it quite simply is about paying attention in the present moment right now, for me to direct my attention, direct my focus, direct my energy to everything that is happening within me and building awareness through that. Because only then can I, if I really pause and create that space, create that stillness, and create create this space where I can turn that lens within, turn the attention within? Can I begin to start to understand what exactly is going on in my mind, and then start to understand what are the kind of thoughts that are fleeting across my mind? And then with awareness and with choice, I can start to choose a different set of thoughts. Because what meditation, more than anything else, what research has shown is doing for me is rewiring my mind, reshaping my mind to become more self aware. And it's also enhancing my ability to self regulate, which means that I can then empower myself to pick and choose my thoughts. And I'm not beholden, I am not a prisoner to whatever the mind throws at me. So before we go forward, we'll do a very, very short exercise. In guided meditation. In the interest of time, we'll do this just for a few minutes. In our programs, of course, we do a much longer version of this. But if you feel comfortable, everyone, all of you who've joined us on this webinar, I would encourage you to try this out and invite you to simply sit with your backs straight. And if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes. Otherwise, you may also keep your eyes open and simply keep your gaze at a certain point in front of you and maintain it at that point. And slowly start to take your attention within and start to bring your awareness to your breath. And just notice right now, what is the quality of your breath? How are you breathing right now? Are your breaths long and deep, or are they short and shallow? Bring your attention to the temperature of your breath as it falls on your upper lips. And bring your attention to the physical sensations inside your body as you're breathing in and out, beginning with your stomach, your chest, your throat, your face, your nose, and slowly take your attention up to your head. And for the next few moments, we're simply going to sit and observe our thoughts. We're not judging our thoughts. We're not trying to control our thoughts. We're simply watching our thoughts come and go like clouds floating through the sky. We're watching them as they come and go. And as you're watching your thoughts, notice that you are not these thoughts. You are the awareness behind these thoughts. And with awareness, you can choose your thoughts. And in this moment, if you would like to choose any thought for yourself, the highest thought that you feel will serve your greatest good, which thought would you like to choose? Take a deep breath. Become aware of your environment. And whenever you're ready, slowly and gently, you may open your eyes. So the fundamental abilities that we're trying to cultivate through all mindfulness practices really boils down to these two things. I become aware of everything that is going on within me. And once I become aware, I can choose what I wish to focus on, and I can choose what I wish to let go of. Because every single thought that you have, every single thought that comes across your mind presents you with a choice. And every moment you have an opportunity to make a different choice with awareness and with intention. And the place where we really want to exercise this choice and this awareness in particular are what do you say to yourself right before you enter that fearful situation, right before you're about to have that difficult conversation or ask for that thing that makes you uncomfortable? And what do you say to yourself after that fearful situation? So before, I may say, I feel afraid, I fully acknowledge it, I fully accept it, but I'm moving forward anyway because this is important to me. And I focus on that and that alone. And afterwards, I may choose to say, well, irrespective of how it went, yes, that was hard, and maybe it didn't go the way I'd hoped it would, but I'm so proud of myself for showing up. And that is the thought that I hold above all else. Why do I say this? Because we want to reinforce that positive loop. If I'm engaging in negative self-talk, what happens? The brain treats it as a form of attack, and any form of attack, whether that's coming from somebody else or it's coming from within me, is a source of caution for the survival brain, and it will go into survival mode. And what that means is that the next time around, when I'm entering a similar situation, the mind is going to create even stronger resistance towards taking a similar action. It will say, you know what, the last time you raised your hand and asked a question, it didn't go well. So you'd be, better off just not saying anything at all. don't go ahead and ask for that thing you want, because it was deeply uncomfortable and painful because not just because of what you were doing, but because of what you were saying to yourself. The subconscious mind remembers every single thing that we say to ourselves, whether we're saying it out loud or saying it in our mind, and it's making a note of all of these things. And if it was intensely painful the last time around, it will stop you from taking that action again, even though that action might help you. Instead, what we can do is reinforce the positive loop. Every time we engage in positive self-talk, and I say to myself, I'm so proud of myself for showing up, what I'm doing in that moment is activating the reward circuit in the brain. And at that moment, when I activate that reward circuit, the brain releases dopamine, which is highly addictive. What that means is that my mind is going to be motivated to take a similar action again in the future, because I created such a positive, I held myself so positively and with such compassion, even though I did something difficult, even though I did something uncomfortable, because I held myself with compassion. The mind treats that as a positive occurrence, as a rewarding experience, and it will want you to try again. And that then sets this positive loop that we get inside, and slowly, this allows us to take bigger and bigger actions in the future. Which ties back to this really beautiful fable, this beautiful tale that comes from the native Indians. That inside all of us, there is a good wolf and there is a bad wolf. Think of the bad wolf as the voice of self-doubt. Think of the good wolf as this voice of self-trust, the voice that tells you, you know what, you can handle it. You know what, no matter what happens, you're still worthy of love and of belonging. And question is, which wolf gets stronger over time? Which voice gets stronger over time? It's quite simply the one that we feed, the one that we pay attention to, the one that we focus on, the one which we, with intention, with awareness, continue to strengthen over time, one thought at a time, one drop at a time. So that's really the foundation of building courage. Today, of course, we've only covered the first step of this, and we go much deeper into this first step. But the journey begins with awareness, and then we move on to all of the other steps of acceptance, of curiosity, of compassion, and of course, taking mindful action. And in this journey, so let me start to bring this to a close. In this program in particular, on any journey that we take women on at Shenomics, our highest intention is that we give you that support, that you can take one tiny act of courage at a time. You take one tiny action, your comfort zone grows. Then you take another tiny act of courage, your comfort zone grows even more and more and more and more over time. And sooner, before you know it, you look back, and you won't even realize how far you have come, because you would have gotten there slowly and gently and with a lot of self-compassion for yourself. So my takeaway for you is, with awareness and with intention, we can build the courage to lead. We can do it with mindfulness. And really what we're focusing on is building our capacity for two things: self-trust, so I trust that I can handle it, and self-acceptance and self-love. So I always say to myself, no matter what, I am good enough and I'm worthy of love and belonging. So I invite you all to join us on this journey. The program, as I said, begins at the end of this month. And today is our last day for the early bird offer that we have. Of course, you can go to our website to learn more, and you can reach out to any one of us for more information as well. And finally, I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes by Joseph Campbell, whose work I admire greatly. A good life is one hero's journey after another. Each time there is the same problem. Do I dare? And then, if you dare, the dangers are there, and the help, and the fulfillment, or the fiasco. There's always the possibility of a fiasco, but you know what? There's also the possibility of bliss. And this last thought is what we have to focus on. Every time we ask, do I dare? Always remember that it holds the possibility of bliss. And on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for being so patient and interactive and sharing your thoughts and comments and insights. And we do hope you'll join us on this journey. And yeah, it will be our greatest honor to welcome you into this program. I know it's 5 o'clock, so for those 6 o'clock. So for those of you who have to leave, please feel free. For the rest of you, if you have any questions, I would like to stay back for maybe 5 minutes or so and answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, I do thank you all for joining us. I see some of you have specific questions about the program. We'll make note of that and we'll get in touch with you over email.